Hey guys, happy 2023. It's been a little bit since you've seen the garden, and in that time, a lot of you also experienced this really big storm that came through and definitely gave us really close to record lows. Now, here where I am in South Carolina, that record low would have been like about 0 to 1 degrees Fahrenheit. But we got down to about 7 according to the weather service, which is still really, really cold for this area because the average around this time is still kind of hovering around freezing, around 32, 33. Right around there is the average. So getting down to 7, it was really, really bad for the garden. As you'll see, a lot of stuff you can already see, lots of brown. It's kind of dead looking. So what we're going to do today is go through over everything that died, go through everything that's still alive, and just kind of talk about how I'm going to proceed given all of the death that I didn't really expect. So one of the more surprising things that is dead is this mint plant. I've never seen it get cold enough to kill mint around here. But this is pretty much dead. Like, it's brown all the way to the bottom. I do think that if I left it here, it would come back, but I'm considering tearing it out now that I've been given the chance. I had originally planted it in the ground knowing that it would kind of take over, and I really wanted that. However, it is a lot of upkeep, and I'm realizing that I don't necessarily have the time to keep cutting it back the amount that it needs to keep getting cut back. So I think I might pull this out and put in a new plant in the spring somewhere where I can keep it contained. Draco, Kata, what y'all doing? Can y'all tell them apart yet? This one is Draco. And then the shinier, slightly fatter one is Kata. Alright, so this is the row of fava beans. You can see every single one of them is dead. Like, this is black. It is so dead. Underneath here I had garlic. And you can see the tips have a little bit of frost damage. But otherwise the garlic is okay. And that is what I would expect. But with the garlic, even if the tops died fully back, I think that they would come back up as soon as it warmed up. So garlic I've never really been worried about as far as cold, especially here in South Carolina where it does not regularly get as cold as it did this past week. This next row here, some of the brassicas and the celery. The celery is also pretty dead, although here in the center there's a few live leaves on each of them. You can see here. So I think these are going to come back. This is obviously not ideal for them, but they're alive, so that's a good sign. Also, the onions in this area, a lot of the tops died back, but you can see the little bits of green near the center, and that means that I'm not really worried about the onions. I think they will definitely make a recovery. It'll be a little slow. Like, obviously this is a setback for the plants, but they're all alive, and I think I will still get a harvest from these. Now, brassicas, these are a similar story. You can see they've got a ton of damage, but they're not totally black and dead like some of those other plants. And so I think that these still have a chance to recover and produce something. It's worth noting that the larger ones have a little less damage, and I think that in general having a larger plant before a big freeze helps it to protect itself, because what a plant is doing when it protects itself from a freeze is basically concentrating sugars in its leaves. The freezing point of water, just pure water, is 32 Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius, but if it's a sugar solution, then that freezing point is lower. And that's how a lot of these plants survive the freezing temperatures, even though their leaves are full of water. Obviously, some of these look worse than others. This one, for example, I think possibly dead. Yeah, as I touch it, it just kind of mushes away. The stem feels still a little stiff down here, but I don't have much hope for this plant. Same story over here. This one is kind of dead looking. This had a lot of tops die back, but there's still some green here. So this one's probably going to be overall okay. I do think for stuff like this, if I had covered it at all, which I didn't, if I had given it just a little bit of cover, some frost fabric, they would have fared a lot better. And that's on me. I definitely had a chance to do that. I did not order any frost fabric on time for this winter like I had planned to. And even if I had, I might not have decided to put it out because I always underestimate how cold it's gonna get when they say that it's gonna get cold. Alright, so trellises also look pretty sad. We've got more dead fava beans, dead lettuces along here, dead peas. Never did get a harvest from these peas. The volunteer radishes over here, pretty much dead. Worth noting though, that even though the tops are dead, the roots, if they were going to be edible in the first place, they would still be fine. You can see them under here. They look okay. I've tried a few of them. I think they're just a little big, and also they grew over the summer, so they're not that sweet. These roots are now far too big to be super edible. They're going to be really pithy, Pithy. So these are probably not good to eat, but if you did have good roots and the tops died back suddenly like this, you could leave them in the ground or you could pull them as needed. Even these look kind of nice. But everything smells kind of rotted because of all these dead leaves. But yeah, roots generally, even if the tops die back, are still good. So I think the most disappointing thing about the freeze is this area right here where I had planted my carrots. I had finally gotten a fair amount of carrots to sprout, and now I can only find like here's a couple here, but anything that had sprouted before definitely died. That might be a carrot sprout there. So there's a chance I'll still get a couple around here, but mostly all the ones that had previously sprouted are dead, and that's super disappointing because I worked really hard to get them to sprout in the first place. Even these that were a little more well established took some damage. They are still alive, but they took a little damage. Something really positive though is that the best looking plant in the garden is this Brussels sprout. You can see there's barely any frost damage on it at all. Like this would be frost damage right here, and maybe a little bit right here. But overall, it's a super healthy looking plant, and it's starting to make little sprouts under there. So that's pretty exciting. I'll have to make absolutely sure that the timing on these Brussels sprouts is the timing for this one, because everything else that was younger, pretty much dead. Even this old one that had been here all summer, pretty much dead. The ones from the store that were looking so good, lots of damage on these ones. So if we look at the raised bed here, there is also a little bit of damage, but not a whole lot. You can see a little damage on the lavender here, a little bit of damage on the oregano, although you can see the internal bits are still green and fine. The sage took just a little bit of damage. This is actually the first time I've seen a sage plant take cold damage. I've been growing sage for a few years now, and it hasn't ever gotten cold enough to really damage my sage. So also thyme looks absolutely fine. I don't even see any damage on the thyme at all. Tarragon, I was expecting it to die with the frost anyway, and also stevia, I was expecting that to be dead. Okay, and then the berry patch. So the bushes have gone dormant, I'm pretty sure, and I'll have to start trimming them back. The rosemary is doing fine. It looks like it did get a little unhappy with the cold, but otherwise it looks fine. And even the strawberries look pretty normal. Strawberries will die back in the winter like this, and that's very normal. They will come right back, but there's still plenty of healthy green foliage under here as well. So I am very hopeful about the survival of the strawberries. Now blueberries, they are also looking like, if they were looking okay before, they're still looking okay. This one right here, this best looking one, still looks quite lovely with a bunch of new little buds coming up. So that is all well and good. I think this plant I might replace in the spring just because it looks awful. And it has looked awful, although there's a couple little buds on there, so maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll just get like a friend, like a support. I don't know. I don't like giving up on it, but also if it's going to be stunted its whole life, I would rather not put all the time into trying to mother it through that, you know? Alright guys, well that is the tour for today. Now that we're in the new year, I'm going to be going back to every single Wednesday. And yes, right now in the winter it is going to be a little slow, but as I've said to you guys before, I think showing the slow part of the garden is really important, and I'm going to start picking up the videos that I'm making for you guys as we approach seed starting season. I'm planning on starting my seeds about mid-February, but there's still like other things that are happening even though this is one of the colder months of the year. So I'll be talking to you guys about my planning process, and coming up this month there will be a seed giveaway, so keep an eye out for that video coming out very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening!